Morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's a pleasure to welcome you here today to our Effective Collaborative Action Deep Dive series. Fede, if it's okay, I'm going to start sharing my screen while others join. We have other people joining in soon. So thank you for being on time and ready to start. And just to set a little bit of the context here, you've joined the first of 4 modules of these Discovering Effective Collaborative Action Deep Dive program, where we will explore different topics and key concepts and ideas, and most importantly, apply them to your own practice. But before we get into the details of what this program is about and we get our hands dirty, I would like to start by sharing an extract of a text called The Big Welcome, in order to welcome you appropriately to this space. And the text goes like this. I am so honored to welcome you all here. Take a moment right now to allow yourself to fully arrive. Welcome. We welcome your excitement and your trepidation, your clear inquiries and your big question marks. Your culture is welcome. Your ethnic origin and experiences are honored and welcome. We welcome your humor and we welcome your silent contemplation. We welcome you in your roles as change makers and all of the experiences that led you to this moment. We welcome your connections to the lands you inhabit and work to heal and regenerate. The lands that we are standing upon and all the life that came before us. We welcome you to this space here where we have prepared the soil for you to sow the seeds of your leadership visions. Let your roots sink into this nutrient-dense soil as we collectively build our capacity to be well individually and collectively as we lead and do good work in the world. Settle in and welcome. And this is a text that was shared by the Art of Hosting community of practice. And it's just an example of many different tools and texts and ideas and things that we are going to start collecting in our Effective Collaborative Action toolbox for you to use with your different stakeholders in different interventions as you may see appropriately, considering your own audience. So let's continue now. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you obviously is, and I think we shared this already in the invite, working, and you probably know all of this already based on your experience, but working with multi-stakeholder collaborative processes, working on systems change is not something that can be done passively. It's something that requires a lot of proactivity and engagement and being switched on, and that's how we envisioned and created this program as well. Not so much as a space where we are here to simply present technical content, but rather use the opportunity to weave in the technical content into your own experience, your own work, encourage us to collectively reflect and do some sense making on, how can we apply all of these things and what are the different challenges that we find on the ground when doing this work. So it is an interactive session, and as much as possible, we will ask you to, if possible, turn your cameras on. We will invite you to participate, to share your voice, to share your questions, your experiences. And this is just the beginning, or another point in your journey in discovering and developing your skills to work on multi-stakeholder collaborative processes. So this capacity building doesn't begin or end in these sessions, right? It's an ongoing journey. And part of the program includes, after the 4 modules, the possibility to have coaching, peer coaching, and specific conversations with me or with our team if you need additional support. So yeah, nice to see you today. Thank you for those who are able to join, and thank you for those who are able to share your screens and your faces. That's wonderful. And let's continue then. This is another practice that we use to create a safe space, to get to know each other, so that we have some kind of connection. After all, you know, we could be seen as well as a group of people coming from different places, different organizations, different backgrounds. So we are in ourselves a multi-stakeholder group to a certain extent. So this is another practice that you can use and that we will use regularly on these modules, which is the check-in. And in this case, I would like to invite you to do what we call a one breath check-in or a one breath introduction. And this is something that you can use if you are convening a large group and you still want to give people the chance to hear something brief from each other and give the opportunity for people to show up without taking a lot of time if it's a group of 20 or 30 people. And, you know, we're a small group today, so that's much easier. But if you have a larger group, then this can prove quite useful. And the invitation is for you to introduce yourself in one breath: name, position, location. What we mean by one breath is that you can say whatever fits in one breath. And you will see, if you start practicing this with other stakeholders, that people tend to have longer or shorter breaths, and that's okay. But the concept is to try to keep it brief and allow for everyone's voices to be heard. And then select another participant to pass the ball so that we have the opportunity to hear from everyone. So I'm going to start, just for the sake of kickstart the process. My name is Sole Riestra. I'm the training and learning advisor for the Food and Agriculture Commodity Systems FACS team at UNDP. I'm based out of Hong Kong. So I'm going to pass it on to Charlene.
Thank you. Big breath. I'm Charlene Collison. I'm with BSR, where I'm the Director of Collaboration, and I'm based out of London. And I'm going to pass the ball to Robert.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Sulistyo. I'm working now as an independent consultant, and I'm based in Central Java, Indonesia. Thank you. I would like to pass the ball to Lawrence.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Sengendo Lawrence, and I'm the Programs Manager for Africa Business Academy based in Kampala. I would like to pass on the ball to Federica.
Thank you, Doris, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you, all of you here. So I'm Federica. I am part of the UNDP FACS team, and I'm currently based in Spain. And I will pass it over to Intan, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes, and I hope, I don't know whether the microphone is good.
Yes,
okay.
yes, we can hear you.
Great. I think, hello everyone. With one breath, I introduce myself. My name is Intan. I'm with Profores. So I'm based in Jakarta, Indonesia. Thank you. And I'm pass the ball to Burini Indrayanti.
Thank you, Mbak Intan. Hi, everyone. My name is Rini Indrayanti, and I'm working for UNDP Indonesia, and I'm based in Jakarta. And I pass the ball to Life.
Good morning from Copenhagen. I'm Leif Petersen, Senior Commodities Advisor in UNDP's FACS team. Happy to be here. I'm going to pass on to an old friend, Aline. Good to see you.
Thank you, Leif. So hello, everyone. My name is Aline da Silva. I work as a biodiversity specialist with UNDP Gabon, and I'm based in Libreville, Gabon. And I will pass the ball to Apishaya.
Hi, everyone. Okay, my name is Apishaya Uin. I'm the project manager of UNDP based in Thailand, particularly in southern Thailand. Very nice to meet you all. I'm passing the ball to Diane.
Hello everyone, my name is Tian Mayasari. I'm based in Jakarta and work with Mbak Rini and team in UNDP. So I'll pass the ball to Alexandra.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandra Atalla. I'm the program and knowledge management analyst working with UNDP, and I'm currently based in Lisbon, Portugal. And I pass it on to Barbara.
Hello, everyone. My name is Barbara Mateo. I'm independent. I work on projects related to sustainability, water, and human rights, and I'm based in Switzerland, in Geneva. I pass the word to.
I think we've covered everyone.
I could cover everyone. Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much. And I'm impressed. This was flawless. Everyone knew who had already spoken, who hadn't. So I'm very, very impressed by everyone's attentiveness. And thank you for giving that a go. As I said, you know, it's different tools and things that we're going to practice and explore and experiment with here today. And so moving into the program, as shared in the invitation and here, this program is a 4-module training or a 4-module learning journey. And we're going to see each other for the next 4 weeks. Today, we are starting with the basis of effective collaboration and systems change. For those of you who had the opportunity to see the videos, the pre-work that was shared, many of those ideas are quite essential to the work that we're going to do here. And we're going to start modeling as well. What is the case study that you want to focus on to implement the different ideas and tools that are going to be presented throughout this program? Next week, we're going to dive into power, inclusion, and how to document systems change. And we're going to look at these ideas and practices to understand how do we get to a shared understanding of what good collaboration is within a multi-stakeholder process. How can we help different groups come to an agreement or at least a shared vision of how they want to go about working together. We're also going to look at the three key ideas around power, working with power, dynamics, and inclusion. And we're going to look at as we understand or develop an understanding of what good collaboration is and can look like, then what are the limiting conditions that can prevent us from getting to that place? And how can we move then forward to develop the process, the multi-stakeholder process further. So we're going to look at this idea of limiting conditions and signals of change. In module number 3, we're going to get much more into the implementation of effective collaborative action and the different building blocks, again, focused on your own case studies. And we're going to talk about effective communication as one of the essential practices as well. And what are the different tools and things that we can bring together into this space that we call effective collaboration or collaborative innovation. And I know these words might sound a little bit like buzzwords. So we are going to get quite practical into them. And finally, the last module is about facilitation. So what are the kind of things that we need to start, thinking and bearing in mind? I'm sure that you all do it already. So it's about putting some language and some articulation around it, and maybe providing a space to reflect on what you are currently doing, what are your strengths, and what are the new things that you would like to bring to your own practice. The structure of the session today, we're going to be 3 hours together. We will have a break at the middle, so around an hour and a half. And we're going to talk about, again, effective collaboration. We're going to reflect on some of the key ideas, case studies, and I'm very honored to have here live Apichaya and Burini that will share different case studies and different practices and experiences that they have in different parts of the world. So let's use that opportunity again to ground any kind of ideas and concepts into work that's been done on the ground. And then, as I said, we're going to start shaping your own case study to apply the learnings of the program. Now, one thing that I would like to share is, and as I said at the beginning, this program is intentionally designed in a way that will prompt you to participate and to sort of model the values and the practices that you would expect the multi-stakeholders to also model and practice when you are designing, executing, or convening a multi-stakeholder collaboration, which is this idea of not just being a passive receiver of content, but actually engaging and learning by doing and bringing in your experience, adapting the tools and the practices to your own needs and context, owning the process of learning. So, being able to tune into this is something that's very useful to me. This might not necessarily be useful to me right now. It might be in the future. So this idea of digesting rather than swallowing whole. And the other point is, as I said, you are here as participants, but many of you are also here as conveners of multi-stakeholder collaborative processes. So what does that mean in terms of us not only looking at the content from a participant point of view, but also as a person that will then take these tools into your own work and practice as facilitators. And we will talk about the role of the facilitator, again, in the same way, not as a figure of expert authority or technical authority only, but also as a convener, a moderator, and a person that's there to remove obstacles, to enable breakthrough in the process of bringing groups together, modeling desired behaviors and qualities, holding the space whilst also being part of it. And this idea of being authoritative and humble and alternating, we will talk about this on module 4, between horizontal and vertical facilitation, which is, again, showing up in authority and at the same time hosting a participative co-creative process. And one last thing that I will say before we move into another participative exercise is that we live in a world of action, and rightly so, because the kind of work that we do demands urgent action. And we all know that, and I think we embody that very well. And the invitation today and in this course as well is to think about effective collaborative action as an iteration between action and reflection. So how important it is when we design, execute, and convene a multi-stakeholder group to bring in action and drive action, and also to enable spaces for you as a facilitator and for your stakeholders to reflect on, okay, what's happening here? Why aren't we able to progress? What's stopping us? How am I showing up in my own power dynamics? How am I responding to other people's power dynamics? All of those nuances that might feel a little bit detached from the action on the ground. We need to set up a platform. We need to come up with an action plan on sustainable palm oil. We need to develop a roadmap to improve farmer extension services. Actually are quite interconnected, because in order to be able to do all of that action efficiently, we need to think about all of those interconnected currents of things that happen when we work with different stakeholders. So that's why we talk about this idea of let's act, do, and also develop our balcony view, which is this idea of taking a step back, observing ourselves, observing others, suspending judgment, and kind of going deeper into what is really happening here, why things are not going the way that I envisioned they would go, or yeah, having this kind of sense of what's happening here, taking that pause. And so we are going to use that resource as well quite a lot here in this program. Just to give you an example on how that looks like, if we take a step back and we look at what we've done so far, so if we take the balcony view and what was the intention behind the different things that we've offered to you already, we can look at, we sent you pre-session videos, and the objective of that was to have resources, multimedia resources to access concepts and participate, and so that you can see them at your own pace. And so that then we can focus, once we are all together, to work more on the experience and the sense making. We had this welcome reading. The intention was to set the tone on inclusivity, on allowing us to show up fully, and trying to bring in a mark of differentiation, setting a tone of, this is not just any meeting. This is a meeting where we are inviting you to show up fully. And again, how can that be used further into your own work with multi-stakeholder collaborative processes, and so on and so forth. So, just to give you an idea of what do we mean by balcony view and how important it is to start paying attention and develop that intentionality around the different elements that we bring together when we convene different groups, and when we think about a multi-stakeholder collaborative process throughout time. So I feel I've talked a lot already. And so now I'm going to invite you to share a little bit more about yourselves, because I'm conscious that the initial introduction was very brief. And so we're going to send you into breakout groups. And in pairs, we're going to invite you to reflect on these questions of what brought you here today, and in relation to your work on collaboration and systems change, what is your greatest hope and what is your biggest struggle? And the invitation is for you in pairs to take 4 minutes for each person to share whatever comes. Doesn't have to be sophisticated, doesn't have to be a TEDx talk, just whatever comes. And the listener will practice deep listening, which is just taking in what the person speaking is sharing and You don't need to ask questions, give feedback, or share any ideas or solutions. Just basically allow for that person to express him or herself. 4 minutes each, and then we'll come back to the plenary and we'll share a little bit of what's emerged in those breakout groups. So thank you, Fede, for taking us to the breakout groups.
Thank you.
I see that people are coming back.
Yeah.
So let's see. Let's give it 1 more minute for everyone to join in, and then we can share a bit what's. I can see Badian smiling. That's wonderful. Hopefully it was a good conversation. Nice. Hi, Uchi, welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We also have, I think we have Sanudin as well, and Gloria joining us. So yeah, who would like to share? What came up in your own pair or groups of 3 in terms of the questions? What brought you here today? What's your greatest hope and biggest struggle in terms of working with collaboration and systems change?
Can I start?
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the eyes. Wonderful.
Actually, I just entered the break room and then 1 minute out.
Oh gosh, yes, I know.
Very nice discussion. Although it's a very brief discussion with my colleagues in the breakthrough, like Urini, Lawrence, and we discussed together the multi-stakeholder collaboration, how we can build the effective partnership with other partners. And then we shared our experiences in our each project in country. And then one good thing is nowadays we need to work with a wider sector in order to achieve our, let's say, our project objective or project goals. For instance, I just engaged with the color project in Indonesia. So I need to learn from our colleagues here and how to work in more wider perspective with other stakeholders. And then this is, of course, to achieve our project targets in, of course, in our project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sanudin. Who was with you in your group?
Rini and Lawrence.
Ah, fantastic. Anything else you would like to add, Burini or Lawrence?
Maybe just a little. I think the struggles that we face in convening different stakeholders together is about breaking the ice or breaking the silos, because I think the stakeholders are very used to working by their own, while we're actually trying to make a system change or system transformation. So it's not something that can be done by only for one person or one organization, but we have to be working together. And to bring people together to get an understanding is always a challenge. So yeah, that's what we are discussing, that the same challenge that we have is how to break the silos and bringing people together. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Burini.
Yes, and just let me add is, of course, the unique objectives. As development partners, our objectives are to change the narratives of the situation. The government has got its objectives, some political, some social, and then some beneficiaries, their objectives are commercial. they need funds, they need, so bringing these things together and allowing the interaction for the benefit of collaboration and systems change is quite the big issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And I love, Lawrence, that you bring this very important notion of how each stakeholder group have their own interests and their own agendas and their own, and that is something not to be dismissed. And sometimes when we talk about collaboration, we kind of try to not touch that, not really put on the table the fact that there are individual objectives, there are individual agendas, and how do we make that complexity work, as opposed to thinking, well, the only way in which collaboration can work is if we become selfless and just commit to something that's out there outside of our own realm of interests. So I really like how you've articulated that, and we'll keep that in mind very, very, very strongly throughout the program.
Okay.
Who else would like to share? Maybe one more group or a couple of more people?
Can I start?
Yes, please. Thank you, buddy.
So I just met Lawrence, and I think that today is my fate to meet her in this class, because she's representative from one of the consultants that dealing with the private sectors, and based on our communication or discussion, we have a both common about how to make a supply chains, particularly traceability, is clear and it's more become a low hanging fruit for other parties. So we found that as the representative for maybe a TSO or NGO, or particularly for independent smallholder, and also the government, how to put all these stakeholder and gathering in the same page to make the implementation of supply chains or traceability is not become something that really needs hard efforts in the near future, so we can make the sustainable palm oil or other commodity happens in the near future. Yeah, thank you. Maybe you want to add more, Lauren, Charlene, please.
I think you did pretty well. I guess, so much of it comes down to the business model and understanding, that the business model is a driver of how people behave. We may not be able to change the business model overnight, but until we change that, then some of the fundamental patterns are unlikely to shift. Oops, can't hear you.
Diane. Yeah, and thank you, Diane, and thank you, Charlene, for sharing what came up in your conversation. Anyone else? One more person maybe that would like to share? Uchi, how about you? What is your biggest hope? What is your biggest struggle?
I came a little bit late in the room, so the initial discussion didn't have it, but at least
okay.
I had a good contribution from Pedersen and Prof. Z Indonesia. Yes, so we had a very good discussion. We are polite about the value chain addition on this commodity. And specifically, I mentioned in Nigeria, particularly in my state, the what crop they have been involved is the soybean production, which is very proteinous in nature, and also it's a kind of regenerative farming. and to try and create a value chain addition upon the line of production, which is from the production and harvesting and selling, distribution to the end consumer, because when you make this, you try to create a market access to it. And also doing this is through cooperation and cluster farming, cluster group of the farmers, cooperative societies, even in commodities like a cocoa or a shell butter. To add a value addition to it is the creation of a cooperative society, so that these people will have a collective voice. And when they have a collective voice, even the government hear and act upon their own grievances, and their channel are well looked upon. What are their problems? But if we are individual, they are individual, sometimes it's not possible for their own grievances to be heard, because cooperatives are being registered and also recognized by the government, and it's very important dealing with the farmers in rural areas for them to come in the cluster group, being cooperative, and create a value chain addition and also market access to their products. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uchi. And I love how you've articulated a very clear case for collaboration in that particular space. Yeah, we'll definitely tap more into your experience as to what are the ways in which you see those collaborations happening more successfully. Because I think there is a lot that we can learn from farmers' cooperatives and how they come together to balance power dynamics in multi-stakeholder collaboration. So thank you very much. Okay, if you have anything else that you would like to share, feel free to use the chat. We will continue this conversation in a little while, so not long from now. Now I would like just to continue with a bit of context, talking about building the case for collaboration and systems change. And from what I heard, this seems to be one struggle, right, that we all have. How do we bring stakeholders together, but how do we also make the case that this is important and it's essential to achieve the change that we want to see? And this is just one way of presenting it. This is the story and the narrative that we've developed. As I said, you know, take this and use what's helpful to you and to your own context, and fill in the blanks as well, because each context is different, and each reality and each process is different as well. So first, just to begin with, why are we looking at multi-stakeholder collaboration and systems change specifically in the context of food and agriculture? Why are we doing that as UNDP? Why are we doing that as FACTS team? Why are you doing it in your own practices and work? And I mean, you know this probably by heart already. There's a very clear case and data and information stating how food and agriculture is critical to UNDP's mission, and how it is critical also to sustainable development. Yeah, so just to name a few of the statistics that you can see here, and many others that are available. Agriculture accounts for 70% of fresh water use, 80% of global deforestation. And actually in a workshop last week, we heard that the latest number is 90%. So it's going up. Drivers linked to food production cause 70% of terrestrial biodiversity loss. And agriculture accounts for 60% of the labor force and producing 25% of the GDP in low-income countries. And over 2/3 of people surviving on $1 a day live and work in rural areas, either as smallholder farmers or as agricultural laborers. So, and as I said, you've probably seen these numbers already many times. I think it's always worthwhile going back to them and reminding ourselves and our stakeholders on why are we working so much into this space and how critical it is for us to work together, because as you can see, the footprint of food and agriculture commodity systems go across systems. Now, if we look at how we work from the perspective of the food and agriculture commodity systems team, and where effective collaborative action is coming from and being positioned, we talk about this intersection between the what, which are the more technical solutions in terms or looking at the more technical challenges on sustainable development, and particularly into the field of food and agriculture commodity systems. But it's not just about looking at those technical challenges in isolation, but it's looking at them in the context of how do we work on them and who are the people that need to be working on and in which capacities. So from our team, we apply effective collaborative action to projects on environmental sustainability, value and supply chains, poverty and inequality, food security and resilience, governance, and other areas as well. We work on deforestation. We are supporting a climate change adaptation global project. So there's a lot of work that we do on that technical side. And when we talk about ECA, it's about working on those technical challenges and bringing those technical solutions combined with the how, which is the focus on collaboration and systems change, on building trust and relationships, on facilitating breakthrough solutions. And not just because we think of ourselves as nice people that want to be liked, but actually because we truly see from experience that the way in which the technical solutions can have more impact and more chances of making a deeper transformational change is if they are done following the principles of collaboration and systems change, looked at much more from a holistic perspective and not just in silos, that the way in which technical solutions can actually penetrate the systems in the longer term is if there's trust and there's a solid relationship between stakeholders, so that whatever is agreed actually takes place on the ground, and working through this power dynamics and conflicts that sometimes might leave, otherwise, if not worked on them appropriately, might leave us with this sense of, yeah, we have kind of a nice superficial idea of what needs to be done. We have an action plan and we get stakeholders together every X amount of time. And there's a lot of conversations and talking and presentation, but actually after that moment passes, the actual action doesn't seem to go as deeper as needed. So that's why the how is so important. And who, as well, it's not just about the right stakeholders, but it's also the way in those stakeholders show up. In which capacity, how do they demonstrate their own leadership, and how do they represent their own group, and how do they allow for other stakeholders to intervene and play a part in that process? That's what we call building leadership capacity, and this idea of cultivating inner capacities, because we cannot change what's out there if we don't look at ourselves and think of what do we need to change in order to be more participative, more inclusive, and what are the limitations as well. How far can these processes go? And in module 3, we'll talk about cultural mapping and how some of our national culture traits may limit the extent to which collaboration can happen. So how do we work around that? All of these different elements play a part. And I'm sorry, I just realized that I hadn't shown the slide. So this is the map of the what, the how, and the who. I'm going to go through this very quickly because I think you probably know this already from the work that you're doing, and you can also refer to the videos, the pre-work videos, where all of this is explained in more detail. But basically, we talk about three things. We talk about effective collaborative action. We think the three things are needed. It's not just about being effective and driving action for action's sake. It's not just about being collaborative because we're nice people and we want to collaborate. The collaboration needs to drive effective action. And as we very well say, action is key because we are dealing with a planetary urgency that needs to be addressed. So these three pillars, in our perspective, need to be working together. So finally, as I said, our theory of change, if you wish, is that we need to work at the sweet spot of individual, collective, and system. So as you can see, that they're overlapping and bringing together technical solutions with participative, inclusive, relationship building processes and building capacities on inner and outer dimensions of change. How do we change ourselves, and how does that lead to change in the systems that we work? And I'm not expecting anyone to be able to read this slide because it is very, very unfriendly for reading. But I just wanted to share with you a sort of a very high level overview of different countries in which effective collaborative action is being implemented, different projects, at a global level. But instead of trying to read this very difficult slide, I'm going to invite, well, first of all, I'm going to stop talking because, as I said, I don't like taking too much time with my own voice. And I'm going to invite us to think about this next 20 minutes as what we call a fireside chat. And the nice thing about fireside chats is that, you know, we can see them as a fire that's outdoors in a nice evening with cool enough weather to enjoy the fire around us. And we're sitting on a circle so we can see each other very well. And that means that we can all participate as well. But just to start off, we're going to give the stick and the marshmallow to Life, Apichaya, and Rini, who are going to share a little bit of their, a little bit or as much as as they want, basically, because they do have a lot of experience in how they've brought collaboration systems change and this idea of effective collaborative action, how they've worked through it in their own projects, experiences, different countries, and I really encourage you to take this opportunity to ask any questions and yeah, make this relevant to you. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen, pass the sticks and the marshmallows to Life and Apichaya and Ibu Rini. And let's kickstart, please, if you want to introduce yourselves again and just share where, you know, in which countries you've worked or you currently work, and maybe briefly share how you've done effective collaboration in the past. Life, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you very much. I can do that, I think. Yeah, so maybe a little, I mean, this is maybe related to my, let's say, professional journey. So back in the day, I was working a lot with certification, with capacity building around certification, and with supply chains. And this was back in the day when certification was still exciting everyone, and everybody thought that was going to drive a total turnaround of the commodity sectors, which didn't really happen. So at some point, we started to reflect on that, and we kind of didn't seem to reach the tipping point where everything would change. And we concluded, and when I say we, this is myself and other colleagues, including also our boss in the FACTS team, Andrew Bobanik. We concluded that really the challenges are too big for any single stakeholder group to handle. So the governments, which are typically the focus of much of our work in UNDP, they can't really bring about the change by themselves, but neither can the private companies and the actors in the supply chain. So what we saw was that while everybody in the global north talked about sustainability and collaboration and so forth, then in the exporting producer and exporting countries, often the stakeholders were not really collaborating or even talking. So that if we wanted to solve some of these huge structural problems in the agricultural sectors, food sectors, then we needed a different approach that allowed the stakeholders to come together and work together and each do their bit. So that's easier said than done. It sounds very natural these days, and everybody talks about it. But more than 10 years ago, it wasn't really the case, in my experience. So I'll give you one concrete example of where I clearly feel that was necessary. I spent many years trying to build capacity with farmers, with exporters, about what was sustainability on small farms, what does it look like, what needed to happen on the farms, etc. So in the farmer support, back in the under the Green Revolution, the public sectors invested a lot in agriculture, but that decades ago that fizzled, and in many countries governments are not really very strong. So we've seen in some sectors that the private sector has stepped in and provides some kind of support, not enough, but some kind of support to farmers. They typically the ones they buy the product from. Then we have donors and NGOs, and nobody's really collaborating. But I see that each of these institutions and companies can provide part of the solution, but it needs to be coordinated. So right now, often, let's say small farmers they are organized, well structured into cooperatives, then it's easier to provide the service. Often they get offered training again and again because they're there, they're visible, they're organized, but many farmers are not really organized and maybe sell through middlemen, so they're hard to access, they're not visible. Sometimes they are the majority of the farmers, so we can't really reach them. So the support to farmers is very uneven. And therefore, I think it's important to get more collaboration going, more basically agreements on who does what and where the gaps are, where the overlaps are, to increase the efficiency in the system. And I think the most realistic solution would be a hybrid farmer support system, but that will not happen unless stakeholders have a place to come together to build a shared vision of what the future of their sector should look like, and build also a willingness to collaborate. I mean, we know that private companies maybe are skeptical towards the government, think they're not doing enough, but also companies often are not good at collaborating because they're competitors as well. So I mean, that space, building trust and agreement to collaborate pre-competitively, I think that's key for many solutions, not only farmer training, but there was just one example. So I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Life. And I love how you've, again, bring it really concretely to experiences on the ground and talking about farmers and how they collaborate and your experience in bringing the different stakeholders into play as well. I've got a few questions, but I'll let others talk first. Because I'm always really excited to have you in this kind of sessions. You bring such a wealth of experience. So thank you for joining us today. And yes, over to you, Apichaya, if you're happy to continue.
Yes, of course. I was just listening to Life, and I really like the experience. My experience is probably a bit different because we start off, UNDP has been working in the region, like in the southern Thailand, where there is an armed conflict between the separatists and Thai government. And there's been violence ongoing for almost 15 years. I mean, the conflict is long before that, but the violence came 15 years ago and still ongoing. And UNDP is actually working on trust building, peace building, conflict transformation before, focusing on like dialogue, building capacity of people, horizontal conflict, working with the military, blah, blah, blah. And then 2 years ago, we kind of shift a little bit of our approach to be more holistic, because we from our experience, we now see that it is not effective anymore to just focusing on working with the higher level negotiation or on peace issue only because we know now that in the region with the conflict ongoing, but the region is actually the poorest in the country. The education is like at the lowest rank of the country. Of all development challenges is actually very high for the region. So we started like to have a balcony view, like you said, like sit back and like review what are we doing here and how can we contribute more effectively. So we collaborate with our colleagues from Spain who has been using the social innovation approach, social innovation platform approach in transforming the conflict, transforming the socioeconomic challenges in the contested area. So we try that approach. It's actually very similar to effective collaborative action because it's focusing on mapping out the stakeholder before you do anything. So who is doing what, who has the power, what is the power dynamic in the region, and what would be the issue that relate to people the most. And from that process, we find that food system is actually close to the people livelihood, economic opportunity development and everything. So we started applying that process into food system challenges. And we do that multi-stakeholder dialogue. We bring people in, co-design, co-create, those kind of process. And then we also support some of the action. So people can do some collaborative action. I mean, like some of the action has been facilitated by us, by the UNDP team, like building that relationship, for example, between farmers, which have never been get together before, to kind of start networking, building their own confederation to do the PGS, the participatory guarantee system. And then we as a UNDP use that kind of facilitation of dialogue to bridge the relationship between the farmer network with the municipality, who has responsible for the markets and distribution of food in the city. So that's just an example of how we do that. And from our experience, I think because I worked in the peace building field before, I moved the table from that like hardcore peace building work into this food system platform. But I find very similarity of how things go, because in order to do the multi-stakeholder collaboration action, trust is very important, super important, and it can be facilitated, built, strengthened in various ways by various people, not only UNDP. Sometimes we need to have a people, a champion who can do that kind of connecting the dots. So I think from our experience, even though we're working on the food system, which comparing to the armed conflict seem to be a light topic, but when we go deeper and deeper into conversation with people, it's actually the question of governance in Thailand. So it's bringing political discussion, bring in economic discussion as well into the topic of food system. And also, hopefully, my biggest hope is that this kind of practice mindset, like way of thinking, could also spread. And also because these people who work on like farmers, they also part of political process. They were related to the member of parliament. They were kind of advocate for their own agenda as well. So I think I'm hopeful that this kind of practice that we try to facilitate can be replicated and also linkage to whatever is happening in the negotiation table in the longer future. I've stopped there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Apichaya. And I love the different angle that you bring from a very different context as well, which is, unfortunately more common than what we think. I was looking the other day at a map of 2023 and where across the globe, which are the areas in which there's still armed conflict. And it's shocking, thinking that there's still a vast territory around the world that still has different kinds of armed conflict, and food still needs to get produced, and people still need to live their lives and make ends meet. So thank you. Anyone else who would like to share their own experience, maybe, or ask a question to Live and to Apichaya? I mean, we're all here again in this fireside chat circle, so your experience is as relevant as anyone else's. And I can see you, Aline. Sorry, you are very close to my screen, and I'm actually very curious to hear about the work that you've been doing in Gabon. So, do you have anything that you would like to share, maybe?
Yes, sure. I can share a bit about the experience here in Gabon. And I mean, in the breakout we had, I was with earlier, like during the session with Apichaya and with Barbara. I was sharing with them. It's all the struggle of, like, I would say, like getting like stakeholders to, like in the implementation of a project, like getting them really like owning and like leading a project when you work with UNDP. So it's not like you implementing it, but like you want them to really like take the leadership. So it's already like a first challenge, I would say. But then, like, once you get, let's say, like more government really like leadership and ownership, making sure that they will be like including the other stakeholders, it's another challenge again. So it's like, as I'm working on just a project that is starting up, I start to like feel and see these challenges. And it's like, when you were mentioning in the session, like it's important to build the case for collaboration. This could really like resonate with me, because I feel like that's the first step. Like you first like really need to make sure that there will be openness for that as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Aline. Anyone else would like to share or ask any questions, share any reflections?
I would like to jump in.
Yes.
Actually, I wanted to follow the discussion that Aline just said. In my experience, it's exactly the same thing. So, for instance, I work in some platforms with different countries. And sometimes the leadership issue is big. So in my view, it's very important. So what I notice in this process is that UN agencies such as UNDP or others that I have worked with are key to be part of, precisely facilitating or at least observing or being part of the process, because this helped them, many actors that are there, to feel confident and to continue participating, and they're waiting for the moment to do more. But how to do more is that the question. How can we help these stakeholders to do more? And that is my comment. Maybe we really need to understand that we need to change the mindset of all of them, understanding that really is empowering people. So when people are taking leadership roles, is to encourage others to do more. It's not about power, it's about helping others to really to contribute better, and to build this kind of mindset around. So in my experience, I have worked with some countries to do that, but then again, you have to, so I wanted to ask Leif, for instance, do you think will be relevant to do a baseline assessment of leadership stakeholders to start with, and then maybe understand what they understand by leadership skills and how they perform those leadership skills? Because maybe it's also starting from there, who is already there and how they are doing it, and try to bring alignment. And then just, I think it could be helpful. Let's leave it here because I don't want to overtake time. Thanks.
Should I answer that?
Yes, please go ahead, Leif, and then we'll move to Lawrence. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so typically in our processes, we do a baseline assessment and it's like stakeholder mapping to understand who we're working with. That includes also power analysis. So, we have been using a tool to segment in terms of stakeholders' influence, of stakeholders influential or not. Do they have power, and how much interest do they have in a solution? So you can kind of plot them in, and you would say some are just need to be kept informed. Some are skeptical, but we hope to bring them more towards a more positive role. Some are both very interested and also very powerful, and they may be your champions. So it's important to understand the roles of your stakeholders, who hold power, who may have hidden agendas. Oftentimes that's not maybe so visible, but it's clearly there. And also then to be able to identify the champions in your processes who can help bring about the change.
Thank you, Leif. I will just like to build on what you were saying, Leif, and to your question, Barbara, which I think it's really, really spot on, and we'll pass it on to you, Lawrence, in a minute. Just to take a balcony view as well on the concept of leadership, because the idea of leadership as well sometimes can be quite challenging in different cultural contexts. We think of leadership as leadership qualities that everyone can bring to the table. And in some cultural contexts, leadership is already embedded in a power dynamic, in a power system, as you probably know as well from your vast experience. So there's something as well about how do we think through the way that we talk about leadership and position leadership. And I remember in one of the in a work that we did with I think it was Senegal, actually, they were talking about this idea of leadership and how when there are leaders, so people that are considered leaders by the community, then those that are not leaders are not allowed to take that space of leadership informally. Yeah, so I'm just bringing this in because I think taking that balcony view, it's so important to think about the words that we use and yeah, how do we work on leadership without talking about leadership in certain cultures and in certain contexts is something that we've been sort of pondering on with different countries and in different processes. Sorry, over to you, Lawrence.
Yes, thanks so much. Of course, I would like to appreciate what Leaf and Apichai have said. But of course, I'd like to ask them, I mean, we've done some community work here, but you find that to get a minister of agriculture to come and attend a session, you need to have money and you need a lot of red tape. You have to look for him 2 or 3 months before. And you realize that some of these become a choke to projects you have to do at community level, because if he doesn't come, or if a district leader doesn't come, and or a segment leader doesn't come, then you can't do this. And I would like just to listen from them. Of course, this happens, of course, in Uganda, similar in Tanzania and Kenya. And I would like to know, in the work they have done, how have they handled these dynamics? Of course, I understand as UNDP, our organization is not as big as UNDP. Possibly some of them would listen to your call. And but ours, I mean, if there is no facilitation and no follow-up of red tape, you won't have these guys. So I would like just to hear what is the experience on that. Thank you.
Apichaya, would you like to go first?
No, I think Lev has his hand on this.
Oh, sorry, Live. Yes, go ahead. I couldn't see your hand raised. Yes, go for it. Thank you.
Yeah, I also don't want to dominate the time, but I just wanted to share to Lawrence something that, concept we've been trying to work on. We recognize that when we set up many of the platforms, dialogue spaces, then we saw that often the decision makers tended not to come, because they delegate. They sent the technical people, so a minister would maybe show up for the opening and then they would leave. And the same with the CEO of a company, they would send their sustainability person or something, and then they would maybe be able to agree, but not necessarily be able to commit the institutions. I think this is a general problem for all of us when we try to foster a dialogue. So I've tried to advocate, and I haven't really seen many successful experiences, but I really think it's the way forward to create what I call a VIP track, or I also call it a country club track for the high level decision makers who can't spend 1 day or 2 days in workshops talking about technical stuff. They need a more executive, but they also, if you think about their mindset, they're powerful, they want to be with other powerful people. So being with what they think is like not powerful people, they don't think it's so important. So it shouldn't be like that. But if we create a space where it's more prestigious, it's invitation only, get people together and make sure they are at least on board with what is being discussed in the broader platform processes, then I think it can lead to this mutual commitment and buy-in from the decision makers that we need as well. So to that point.
Just let me throw in a bit, and I observe if that has to happen, then you do it before this possible workshop or sitting, and then possibly after. Then you need to go back to get their buy-in in what we agreed, and then see if they can fit into what you want to do possible.
Yeah, I think it needs to be in parallel. I don't think you can only go afterwards. So they also need to, in principle, buy into it, then they delegate maybe the more detailed dialogue work to their staff, which often happens. But at least try to encourage them to take ownership of what's happening, even though they may not be there. Otherwise, they'll say afterwards, oh, I wasn't participating,
Okay.
Thank you so much, Life. I love the realism that brings, and this tension in multi-stakeholder collaborative processes of the vision that we have of inclusion and participation, the limitations that we have on the ground, and how do we work with what it is, and how do we from there create some level of change, but starting off from where it is. And another reflection that I wanted to share that came up a lot in different processes is this idea that multi-stakeholder collaboration doesn't happen just in the moments of the workshops or when the stakeholders come together. Most importantly, actually, it happens in the in-between of the processes, and how you build those parallel conversations. How do you address the power dynamics before and after and during, and there's a lot of political management there that needs to take place. So maybe there's that invitation of thinking about multi-stakeholder collaboration as a continuum, and not just in the moments of the workshops or the events, which I know that you already do. I'm just saying it's coming to me as a reflection hearing you all talk. Yes, Aline, sorry, over to you.
Thank you. Just another question for the group. I would be curious to hear from others. I know something also that I'm observing is that in the dynamics of collaboration, there are so many like the personal layer is so important, in the sense that like your ethnic, or I don't know, if you're coming from an influential big family, I mean, all of that is going to kind of affect the power of dynamics in a group. And I'm just like curious to hear, like, from others that may have experienced like similar groups, like how to deal with that. Or I guess we can't really deal with, I mean, it's just like something that is so culturally like strong that, you know, will never change, but then like how to still like work collaboratively in this kind of setup.
Who would like to share their experience or thoughts? Yes, Apichaya.
I resonate with Lawrence and Life on like the top management of the ministry. We try to engage them as well, but there is no effective way yet. We are still unsuccessful. But I think the most important thing is that we facilitate the multi-stakeholder dialogue on the ground and community level. And what we do is actually trying to find someone in that ministry who can influence those decision making. I mean, it can be a technical level, it can be some of the MP that we know closely at the constituency level. Or I think sometimes when we select the partner, for example, we work a lot with this university institution who have done a lot of work on food system change. And she is actually the one who influenced one of the government agency, like Thai Health Promotion Fund. Whatever we do with her is actually being known and keep informed to the fund, government agency. So sometimes we don't even have to like influence them directly. It's a matter of trying to find a key partner, key champion, who we know they have the closeness, like personal closeness to someone at the decision-making level. It takes time to find that kind of champion. And I totally agree that sometimes myself, I work at local level a lot, and I still struggle to connect whatever we do on the ground with the ministry level. And at UNDP, I think sometimes we need to probably integrate among ourselves as well as a project in our organization, to bring in some of the relationship that we already have, like for example, the relationship with the parliament, relationship with the Ministry of Natural Resource and Environment. But it's still difficult, to be honest, because UNDP is still operate under the projectized modality. So, yeah.
Thank you, Apichaya. Thank you very much. And to your question, Aline, you made me think about, this idea of privilege, and we will definitely cover that next week. But in one particular country that we are working with at the moment, there is a particular stakeholder that's very, very resistant to the platform that's currently taking place in that country, and we are trying to help the country office crack, what's happening there. Where is that resistance coming from? And to your point about, where people come from and what they bring to the table, what we are noticing in that particular example is that there's a lot of assumptions that we bring into where people are coming from and how they are exercising their privilege, and not as much effort in listening to their own thinking and how they're processing why they are being resistant or why they're not joining, and what should be the type of participation that they should have based on where they come from and the kind of privileges that they bring. And of course, many times they're not even aware of their own privilege. So I would say one practice that we are encouraging that particular country is to actually sit down with that stakeholder and try to understand and to listen. What's their perspective? What are they seeing? How they are seeing things? How do they think they should be participating? What would be their ideal world situation? And in that way, you kind of, I think, start cracking, meeting that person where they are at, and then thinking of how can their own perspective and their own privilege be in service of that greater good. But it does take a lot of, I think, deep listening and sort of being able to work through that relationship on a personal, I think, on a very personal level. And of course, open to anyone else's experience on this or different perspectives as well.
Maybe I just reflect on your, the deep listening. We've done a lot of deep listening. I mean, every year we will do that deep listening with whom we have engaged in during that year. And I find one particular example is we try to connect with the National Economic and Social Development Council. And what we do is we firstly invite them to observe in the activity, because we know that she is reluctant. So what is it? What are UNDP doing with this all stakeholder? And we firstly invite her to observe, and she keep coming back. And then, she keep coming back, and we also, like you said, we go to her office, interview her boss, listen to her, what is the challenge, what she do, what is the practice. It's more comfortable, and she tend to speak her mind better than in a workshop setup. And I think that example tells us that deep listening is very important. It's not only to formulate a project, but to also have the balcony with the stakeholder. I think that's something I think we can share.
Thank you. I love that idea of inviting stakeholders to the balcony. That's a really, really good visual. And yes, Uchi, would you like to say something or yes?
Yes, we'd like to contribute on these stakeholders' participation and the influence of politics. As you said, it's really difficult in various perspectives, ethnicity, custom, and tradition, especially in Africa and in Nigeria, where there is multi-ethnicity of about 250 languages, different tribes. Sometimes it's very difficult. But what from the little experience I've seen is that when you want to involve the opinion, can I say the opinion leaders, some of these stakeholders are the leaders in the communities That is after the government has passed the policy for any implementation. What I mean by the government is that in Nigeria, for example, we have a small parastatals that worked with the liaise with the government and farmers, and we call them ADP, that is Agricultural Development Programs. Now, if you have the indicators, the baseline indicators with these ADPs, you liaise with them, it's now better. Now they have to work in various places. Maybe they have the data, they have the baseline of what you will work with. But when you go and meet the opinion leaders, the leaders in the village communities, they tend to jeopardize the whole effects. Their interest is paramount in whatever thing they do. So in most times, trying to bring them in is difficult at the implementation stage. What they really do, liaise with them to do, is just to create awareness and then sensitization of these communities. Then after the sensitization and the awareness creation, then if you have the baseline indicators from these ADPs, now you start working with the people. That is why the advocacy of the cooperative societies has become very paramount, and many people have now embraced it in this local community, because when you turn to use a leader, when you tend to use a leader, opinion leader within the community, they hold other people at ransom, trying to portray their interests more than ever. So now what you do is that when the awareness and sensitization had been created, then it comes to implementation of such project. You now dialogue with the participants. Those data you have from the ADP, you now dialogue with them. Now they tell you the true nature of what is happening, how the program will be implemented, and then they will benefit. From there, they start telling you that, yes, we have to look for a neutral place and start a participation. We must not go to opinion leaders' house. They may show you a school, a church. We will start in the church where the influence of the opinion leaders will not be there. We start from the school where we sit there, and then the influence of these opinion leaders will not be there. And then from within themselves, they look from the past experience, those that they have worked with, and they are worthy to be a leader. And then within themselves, they choose a focal person within where you can be collaborating with. And it tends to help a lot this time around. And I don't have a project now, but I was opportune to work with GIZ some years ago, and I saw it on the rice value chain. I saw it, and it was very successful, because the influence of these opinion leaders, community leaders, they tend to portray their own interests more than that of the community. So it's good that when you do the awareness creation and the sensitization, you have the indicators from these parastatals, ADPs, then you try to then set them aside and then work with the real participant, where the participant will tell you. From there, you discover that from these participants, they are really low-income people, where they reason together, they communicate, and they know there's such people in the communities that have been jeopardizing their effort. And sometimes it works a lot. That is the little I have to contribute on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uchi, and definitely a great example on how important it is to localize multi-stakeholder collaborative processes and mechanisms to the context of each landscape, jurisdiction, country and or district. So thank you very much. And thank you everyone for your amazing engagement, contributions, reflections and questions. I'm conscious of time, so we're going to take a 10-minute break because I think you've been sitting down for quite a while now. So we're going to, please don't disconnect from the Zoom, just turn off your cameras and mute your microphones. And let's say we come back, maybe we'll take 8 minutes. So we'll come back 52 to the hour, if that's okay, so that we can continue with the rest of today's session. So I'll see you 52 by the hour. Please kindly come back in time so that we can continue. Thank you for making it on time. It was a wonderful conversation. So also thank you for investing all that energy and sharing with all of us. As I said, you know, that's where the richness lies in this kind of spaces. So very, very appreciated. And so now we're going to try to take that, well, before taking that balcony view, we're going to try to think of the case study, this particular intervention initiative where we would like to apply effective collaborative action, and that we want to use this program as a way of practicing. And for that, let me just move to the next slide. The first step is to actually identify what that's going to be. And so we're going to ask you to take 5 minutes to write down one paragraph on where or how you want to apply effective collaborative action in your work. Sorry, it's not under Scala program, it's in your work. I'll show you basically on the chat, you have been assigned a particular set of Google Slides, which is what we are going to call your ECA workspace. And Federica, thank you so much for assigning each person to their own slide deck. And I'm going to show you how that looks like in a minute. So let me just check where this is. I think I must have closed it. Okay, so let me just open this for a minute. Just a second. If you can, in the meantime, open your own file, you will definitely see what I'm about to show you on your screen. So here it is. I'm looking at another screen. That's why I'm, yes, here it is. So let me just share my screen again. Yeah, there it is. So here you can see that each file has your name. One file's been assigned to each one of you. So if you can please open that file. And I'm going to share with you the one that we use as a model. This is how it's going to look like. And so we're going to ask you for the next 5 minutes to work on this slide number 2, which has the question of where do you want to apply effective collaborative action in your work. And here in this white space, you can just write a paragraph or 1 sentence, 2 sentences, nothing fancy, nothing sophisticated. But again, you know, just to think of a concrete example where you can start bringing in all of this different exercises and tools into play. And so in my case, for example, and Life, you're familiar with this because we are working together on it, apply ECA to an upcoming co-creation workshop for a multi-stakeholder platform to support transformation of Rwanda's coffee sector. So that's my case study. And for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to invite you to just reflect on yours and input it in your ECA workspace. Do you have any questions? Are you able to access your Google file? Or if you have any problems, just let us know, and Federica and myself can help you. We will take until 1 or 2 minutes past the hour. Please, once you're done, if you can just raise your hand on Zoom so that we know that you've finished, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Charlene. Thank you. And don't worry if you need a little bit more time. Thank you, Aline. You can always continue to think about it and maybe add any further reflections after the session or later today. Don't feel like you have to have something very digested at this point. Thank you, Apichaya. Let's give it one more minute and then we will start again. In the meantime, I'm going to go back to the presentation. So yeah, so hopefully by now you have a sense of where you want to start applying effective collaborative action. It can be a small intervention, it can be a big project, whatever makes sense to you and where you're at. And I'm going to take a few minutes to walk us through some of the key elements of effective collaborative action, but just as a reminder, there is more detail about all of this in the pre-work videos that we shared with you. So if you haven't been able to watch them yet, and you feel that you want to learn more after today, feel free to use those as useful resources. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly because I think it's important that we get some time to focus on the second part of applying all of this into your concrete case study. So some of the key elements of ECA, on one side, we have from a how do we design and execute and implement a multi-stakeholder collaborative process using this more holistic systems change approach. We have what we call 4 building blocks. And these 4 building blocks are key areas of work that we need to put attention to when we start designing or implementing a stakeholder process. Now, we don't see this, even though they have a number, we don't see this building blocks as linear, so that they have to be worked on in order, but actually you can work on each one of them and prioritize them depending on where your particular project is at. So for example, if you are starting and you are developing the concept node for a project, probably starting with understand the system would make sense, because then you can build the basis. If it's a mature platform that you are working on, you could think of going directly into learn and adapt and looking at the past experience and what are the learnings and what are the things that need to be changed in order to be more effective. So, just being overly simplistic here, but to give that sense of we don't have to go through the step-by-step process. But let's look at each one of the building blocks and in a very high level summary, understand the system is about becoming aware of the different parts involved in a multi-stakeholder process, and what are the connections and interactions. Also understanding what the current situation is and what needs to change. And some of the practices that are very common in this particular building block are things like systems mapping, stakeholder mapping, visioning exercises, SWOT analysis, anything that can help you and your stakeholders understand where you're at, what's the current situation and where you need to go. The second building block is about co-creating the approach. And this is where we start co-designing visions, plans, and pathways for change, where we try to bring different key stakeholders' voices, views, and needs. And as we said, we tend to think that this can only happen if we bring all stakeholders together into a workshop. And that is a big part of it, but it's not necessarily the only way. There is, as we discussed before and hearing all of your experiences, it is important to think about how can you co-create the approach that you're going to take, addressing existing power dynamics, cultural nuances, and understanding that maybe bringing all stakeholders together might not necessarily be the way in which all stakeholders want to participate or are going to participate. You know, Live was talking about this VIP track. Uchi was talking about the ADPs, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. So thinking about all of these different tools and ways in which we can co-create the approach. Take collaborative action looks at the importance of working together and taking action collectively. And again, how do we do that? For each context might be different. One way in which it takes shape is through embedding in the structure of the multi-stakeholder processes, the working groups, and connecting people that have energy to work on specific aspects of a platform. Just connecting them together and making sure that they work on that particular aspect, that they have energy, and that's how they contribute to the platform, but also making sure that there is connection and that the action that's taken is well understood and communicated across stakeholders. So communication in this particular building block is quite key. And then we have learn and adapt, which is this notion that, and unfortunately it happens a lot in our field of work, that we put together project documents for a 3-year or a 5-year project, and then things happen. COVID is a great example of that shake the system, and those documents and what's been said in those documents are no longer relevant, or the action plan that's been agreed at a national level might need some change. So how can we bring in mechanisms from a governance perspective, but also from an operational perspective, that can allow for that flexibility and that ongoing adaptation? Now, if we go through other key elements, and this go more into the undercurrents that we were talking about earlier on, this is what we call the essential practices. So the qualities and the areas of focus in terms of skills, personal and group development, and awareness. And they're much more fluid, right? It's this sense of the thing that happens under the surface. And what we have identified based on the many years of experience of the team is that the 4 critical ones are this idea of building what we call systems leadership capacity. And we don't need to use that term, which might sound very sophisticated, but rather think of how can we empower people to take action and change at 3 levels: individual, within their own institutions or within their own stakeholder group, and within the wider system. So it's about empowerment, it's about learning, encouraging each stakeholder to understand the role that they are playing, how they're influencing, or how they are contributing or not contributing to the collective agenda. Then we have inclusion and working with power. I think this speaks quite to itself, and the experience that you've discussed already in terms of how can we enable equity, representation, distribution of resources? How do we understand the current power dynamics and what can be changed, what cannot be changed and needs to be navigated? What is the best way of navigating through those dynamics? So it's about looking quite closely into how do we build up inclusion and how do we work through power dynamics within the context of that particular landscape or district or national platform. There's also work through conflict, and this is something that we recognize in the different multi-stakeholder collaborative processes that we've worked in, that it's very hard to address and it's not done enough. So the question that we need to hold here is how can we allow for conflict to emerge so that it can be worked on? And typically what happens with conflict is that it's kept under the radar, under the carpet. But if conflict is not addressed, then it doesn't necessarily get resolved. And so collaboration can only go as far if that particular aspect is not solved. So how do we work through conflict? And there are different tools that are available to think about, you know, how do we surface it? What are different facilitation tools and skills that we can bring in? How can we address it in an anonymous way? Does it have to be in a multi-stakeholder group, or does it have to be addressed individually? You know, thinking again, paying attention and putting intention into how this is addressed. And finally, we have communicating effectively, where the idea here is to place attention not only in making sure that there's ongoing communication, how we position our messages, how things are shared and stated, but also how we listen and how listening is embedded as part of the ways of working of that multi-stakeholder collaborative process. And we've talked about deep listening and the importance of deep listening before the break. Last one before we go into the work. Sorry, I've got last one before we go into a small group work, and then we'll go into applying this to our case studies, is 2 additional elements to consider: stakeholder actions and backbone support. And this basically refers to thinking about what actions need to be taken by different individuals, by different stakeholder groups, what needs to happen, who needs to know what, who needs to participate when, and this doesn't necessarily have to be the same for everyone. It's actually understanding the differences between the stakeholders and the differences in the way that they need to participate. That's key. And so stakeholder mapping, having a stakeholder engagement strategy is very relevant here. And backbone support refers to the capabilities, the resources, the financing. So all of the foundations that need to sustain any multi-stakeholder process throughout time. So we need woman power, we need a budget, and we need financing. We need people playing different roles to sustain that multi-stakeholder collaborative process, and so on. So it's very important to look at this again with intention and attention, because sometimes it's overlooked, and then unfortunately multi-stakeholder processes cannot continue because they don't have the right financing or the right capacity in place. So now we're going to go into a bit of a reflective mode individually, and then we're going to have, let's see if we can get some time to have a bit of a conversation. Otherwise, we'll move into the next section. But given all of what we've discussed today, the conversation that we've had, the elements of ECA that we've just covered, what do you think at this point? What does it take to collaborate effectively for systems change in your work? How can you summarize all of the information that you've received? How are you making sense of it? And what we are going to do is we're going to invite you to just add 1 or 2 key ideas into this collective mapping that we are going to make together here on this screen. Let me just open again. Yeah, Here it is. So Fede, if you've shared the link already.
Yes, Sole.
Thank you so much. If everyone can just, check here. This is the slide that you should be looking at. And just grab one or two of the sticky notes over here. And think about what are the one or two key ideas that you take away from what we've been covering for the last 2 hours today. And if you finish with that and you feel like positioning your sticky note somewhere here in this map, if you think it responds to working through conflict or working with power, if you think it's about understanding the system or co-create the approach, then just move your sticky note to that map wherever you think it goes. We're not being very scientific about this, but it's just to have a sense of a collective sense making. So thank you for that. And we'll take about 5 minutes for this. Yes, thank you, Lawrence. If you are having any issues with the Google file or internet connection, just type it on the chat and we will reflect it on the Google file. Thank you, Lawrence. And for anyone else as well, for that matter. Wow, so much input. I love this. Looks amazing. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, that was me. Shouldn't have done that. Trying to fix the... No worries, I'll fix it afterwards. What happened? Is it this? Very strange. Thank you so much. Let's give it one more minute because I can see that there's a few just finishing some of your thoughts. So, and I'll clear these formatting thing that I think it's just the image that moved. So yeah, let me see if I can clean it up a little bit. Okay. Yeah, there it is. So it's S. Okay, so let's see. We've got strong government and private sector commitment, a common vision of the prize, benefits of collaboration, common interest, critical mass of systems facilitators at national and local level. Facilitation is such a critical thing, and we are seeing it over and over again coming up as a key success factor. Effective tools and methodologies to foster dialogue and collaboration. Formation of clusters, groups of common interest, fantastic. Top leader commitment. Unequal power relations among stakeholders is something that needs to be looked at. Buy-in from most powerful players, definitely. Action from champions, finding the business case, adapt the system according to the kind of stakeholders. Knowledge management, fantastic. I'm going to put all of this into a summary that you can take and share as well, you know, as a hopefully input for any multi-stakeholder processes that you might be working on. So thank you for all your suggestions and ideas. And yeah, feel free to continue adding to this later on because this is an open file, so you can just basically continue working on it. I'm going to bring us back now to also the idea of why the graphic looks the way it looks like, and it's trying to convey this idea that it's all interconnected, right? So it's kind of all overlapping in a way, and that leads to the next section where we talk about systems thinking, leadership, and change. Sorry, I'm trying to put it on presentation mode. And I don't know if anyone had the chance to look at the videos, but Charles O'Malley, our senior systems change advisor, produced 3 videos talking about the 3 key ideas on systems thinking, leadership, and change. Those are part of the pre-work, so feel free to go through them if you haven't done so yet. In a summary, the 3 key ideas are that we operate in a complex system. So that means that even though we would love to think that X intervention will lead to that outcome and therefore change the system and everything will look good and nice and we won't have climate change anymore, that is not the reality, as we all know from experience. And so trying to really understand that our interventions are operating in very complex systems, and so the ramifications of them are very, very hard to grasp or to understand. The second thing is that, what do we do? Because obviously we talk about complexity, but we still have to work, we still have to bring that effective collaborative action. So the idea that follows is that leading or working in complexity then requires this systems approach, the understanding that we are working with this complexity, and therefore the solutions or the ideas that we bring need to be agile, need to be open, that they cannot come from one institution only or one stakeholder only, but we have more chances of succeeding in building a collective understanding of the system if we bring more stakeholders together rather than just seeing the system from our own limited perspective. And we'll go to a story that illustrates this. So the only way to think in a systemic way is together. And then the third key idea is about leverage points, which is instead of trying to fix the symptoms, so if you have a cold and you have a runny nose, you blow your nose, but you still have a cold. You're still sick. So what is making you sick? What is making you have that cold? How can you, it's that process of going deeper into the root causes so that the actions that are taken are trying to address the deeper reasons why things are happening, and not just what we can see, which is the consequence of that. And we're going to go into that practical exercise to think of how does this look in practice. But just want to know who, and I know some of you have already seen this story before from other sessions, so who knows the story of the elephant? I'm wondering, Charlene, if you've seen it before. Oh, okay, fantastic. Can you share it with us, please?
Oh, golly. Okay, quick short version. There are 3 travelers going through the desert, and after a long day's journey, they come to a group of tents, and they go to get shelter for the night, and they hear that in one of the tents is a mysterious and rare creature. And so they decide to steal in during the night when everything is dark to get a glimpse of what this mysterious and secret creature is. So when everything is dark, the 3 travelers sneak in under the flaps of the tent, and the first traveler puts his hand out and feels something long and round and thin, kind of like a tube or a pipe or a cord. And he says, "Ah, I see, the creature is a snake." And then the second traveler puts his hand out and feels something wide and broad and thick, and says, "Oh," as this diagram shows, it's a wall, or it's an enormous, great flat beast. And the final one puts his hand out and feels something long and hard and firm and cold, and says, "Oh, I see the picture. You're wrong. It's a spear." And so they begin to argue about what the creature is, and they argue and they argue and they argue until finally the dawn comes and the light comes into the tent, and they see that it's not a spear or a snake or a wall, it's an elephant.
Thank you so much. That's been the best version of the story that I've heard, and I'm going to borrow it from you because it has so many beautiful details. Loved it. And it was just spontaneously, I mean, amazing. You are a fantastic storyteller. Thank you for that. So yeah, indeed, that's exactly the very evocative story about the elephant. That's we are basically those individuals trying to make sense of something that we cannot see as a whole, and we can only access a very limited part of it. So thank you very much. This is a great way of portraying, you know, why it's important to come together to understand something that's bigger than ourselves. So in a nutshell, complexity, what's the feature of systems under this approach of way of seeing systems is that systems are complex and they are unpredictable, and this idea that they are more like clouds than clocks. And the consequences for how we work is that we can never fully understand the system or the effects of an intervention. So we need to work collaboratively to build that sense of the elephant and not just a little part of it. And we need to test, learn, and adapt and manage that level of agility. And when we think about leverage points, the deeper we go into the root cause of the problems, the more we get into addressing behavior change, mindset, worldview, beliefs, values, dominant narratives that are feeding the way in which we think about technical solutions and why a certain technical solution will be better or more efficient than another one. So we need to think about how do we influence those deeper leverage points so that we can transform the systems. And I just wanted to bring all of this into some kind of concrete example, if possible, because I know it's a bit sort of up there, abstract and conceptual, but we had the opportunity to contribute to a multi-stakeholder event that took place in Uganda under Scala, which is a project that works on climate adaptation and mitigation through helping countries work on their NDCs and NAPs and the implementation of the NDCs and NAPs. And we were invited to do this very short session on how can we help this group of stakeholders think about the systems level assessment that was done at the time and the results that were being presented in a more systems way, in more of an elephant and not just as a snake, a spear, or a wall. And so we looked at this 50 pages document. You know those very well. There's plenty of those left, front, and center that we receive every day. And there was just one paragraph of that of that document. We took one paragraph and we reflected it on from a systems mapping perspective, and that's what you're seeing on screen. And so we showed that to the stakeholders and said, this is one paragraph of that 50 pages document that you are discussing today and that you are supposed to be taking action on and deciding what to do with it. And it was fantastic to see the reaction of this group, because then they started to talk about complexity. And the conversation shift to instead of talking about the details of the report, it shifted to how can we work through this level of complexity. So I just wanted to bring that example as a prompt of how this conversation about we work in complex systems and they're very difficult to understand can be actually taken to a concrete life example that speaks to your stakeholders in a way that can maybe shift the conversation. It will not make the system less complex, but at least it will bring the awareness of we need to talk about the complexity more than what we need to talk about the detail of the fine print of the 50 pages document. Anyways, here we are. So we have 25 minutes to go. And so what I would like to invite you to do now is to take 10-15 minutes to do some individual work again on your Google workspace. Let's say 10 minutes and see if we need a little bit more. And then we'll come back together as a group to do group sense making. And the idea is to work on what are the key challenges and complexities of that project that you chose, that you want to implement ECA on, and I'll show you in a minute how. And what are the key leverage points that you can work in with, and where do you see opportunities to bringing a more systems-based approach? And the way that we're going to work on this is you've got on your individual workspace this template. Let me show you a clean version of it first. So the template looks like this. It's a matrix. And here you have the placeholder to locate challenges and complexities on the matrix here using your sticky notes. And if you can, try to think of this in terms of how complex they are and the level of impact that they might have. Yeah. And based on that, we've created this sort of relative work zone where we talk about, you know, if it's highly complex and it has low impact, then you might leave it as a no-go zone. If it has high complexity but high impact, then it's worthwhile further evaluating. If it's low complexity and high impact, those are your quick wins. And if it's low impact, low complexity, you might have some marginal benefit. But, you know, it's this idea of organizing challenges and complexities in a way that feel workable, that you can do something about them. Or if not, you just say, you know, this is something that I will have to deal with because it's too complex and I can't impact or influence. So we're going to take a few minutes to do that. And then once you've identified 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever you feel you can identify, it doesn't have to be everything, moving into identifying leverage points and opportunities for a more systems-based approach. Yeah. So once you've identified the complexities and the challenges, then you can think, and you've mapped them in that complexity impact matrix, you can think of, oh, okay, this is a leverage point that I can use. This is an opportunity where I can bring systems change. And so just very briefly to share the example, I told you the example before was working through this upcoming co-creation workshop for the creation of a platform, of a multi-stakeholder platform to support transformation of Rwanda's coffee sector. And this is actually a project that we are working with live at the moment. And so I've done a very short, like quick and dirty exercise, and I've sort of identified, as you can see, maybe, sorry, you know, high complexity, low impact, the political context of Rwanda that may limit participation, but there's no space for influencing this. Yeah, the regime is the regime, and it's something that is there, and I need to be aware of. We need to be aware of. Then if I move from the high complexity to high impact, the platform is not set up yet. So that has a level of complexity, but it has the potential for high impact as well. And there is willingness and interest of stakeholders, but little knowledge on how to set up and operate a platform. So again, that is worth investing our time. It's very complex, but it has high impact, and so on and so forth. And then, you know, leverage points, I've identified stakeholder willingness, that is a leverage point. And opportunities for a more systems-based approach, the design of the workshop that we are working on, that's an opportunity to create that systems-based approach. Bringing in a semi-structured template for designing the platform that already sets that basis of a platform from a systems perspective, you know, just to give you a sense of things that you could think of. So we're going to take 10 minutes and then we're going to wrap up, hear your thoughts, and say our goodbyes for next week, if that's okay. So please, yeah, go to your individual workspaces and let's take around 10 minutes to work through this. And do let us know if you have any questions or if you need any help. Thank you, Charlene, of course. Thank you very much, and see you next week. Let's take 2 more minutes and then we can come back together and start the closing of the session. And as we said, you know, feel free to continue working on this if it's useful and relevant. This material is all yours to benefit from. I would like to invite you now, if that's okay, to maybe leave wherever you are in your process, and let's just come back to the group so that we can start closing, because I'm conscious we've been long enough holding you in this online setting. And this is something also worth considering, right? To what extent all of these exercises and different tools and practices can be applied virtually, if you have the chance to work them face to face, you know, whether they are more dynamic in a way. So just bear that in mind as well. But anyways, let's go for the closing. And Fede, if you can kindly share the questions on the chat so that I can stop sharing the screen and we can just see each other. An invitation to check out, thank you, Fede. An invitation just to check out on, you know, what did you learn? What did you enjoy? What would you like more of? And what else that you might have in mind before we say our goodbyes? And yeah, before we start into that conversation, just to share that you are going to receive an email with a summary of, again, you know, reminding you where you can access the pre-work for module 1, and a reminder of the pre-work for module 2. So really encourage you to go through those materials before the next session. They're all very short videos, so, you know, you can just watch them whenever you have the chance. So yeah, who would like to go first? Lawrence, I can see you there.
Okay, thank you. I hope I do not make people fail to speak, because of yeah, of course, what I learned, of course, I liked the lesson from Leif of having with the different stakeholders we work with, like a VIP off-take session. And then, of course, I also came, of course, to learn of some new strategies to think about in the way we engage work. And then what I enjoyed about these sessions is rarely do you attend sessions where time to present is controlled, where they allow people to participate. And I believe in terms of what we are learning on collaboration and food systems, I believe it's well done, and I would like to applaud on that. And then, yeah, possibly then, of course, I also liked the fact that you shared these sessions, the documents that we are working with, and have given us extended time, because I don't know what happened on my side, whether it's my computer or not, but even if I can't work online, I can work offline and then be able to share. That's what I highly appreciated. And then the last one is not being a UNDP staff or UNDP stakeholder, being given an opportunity to participate and to get more knowledge. I've also recently joined the FACTS community, and I appreciate being part of it and the information I'm learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lawrence, for your kind words and appreciation. And I would like to appreciate your very passionate and active participation, which is beautiful, and everything that we've learned from you. So thank you.
All right, my pleasure.
Robert, would you like to share anything? If you, oh, it's okay. Yeah, thank you, Robert. Yes, feel free to put it in the chat. Live, anything from your side that you would like to share?
Yeah, I've been in several of these sessions before. I also always like the thematic area of systems change and multi-stakeholder collaboration. And then I particularly enjoy connecting to people I don't know and who work with those same things around the world. And I can be here in Europe and speaking with people in Asia and Africa. So I enjoy that a lot.
Thank you. And thank you once again for the generosity of your time here to share all the work and experience that you've done. And as you can see, you've left your mark with the VIP Country Club track that we are all going to remember moving on. So thank you.
I think you're muted, Sole.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Robert, I can see that you are unmuted, but I'm not sure if your mic is working. Ah, it's okay.
No, I
no
think
worries.
it's not working.
Take your time, and yes, we can read from the chat. Yes, Apichaya, anything that you would like to share from your side, if you're still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
Yes, I think I'm really happy to be here. And the first part on a kind of mindfulness, I really like the part where you emphasize on balcony view. That's your mark, I think, for today. And because a lot of time we were rushed into delivering what we have to do, but we often leave no time for reflection. And I like that very much, that throughout the session today, we have some time for reflection, both with colleagues and with ourselves as well, with yourself as well. So thank you so much, and happy to see colleagues from all over the world joining, and looking forward to the next session.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Aline, not sure if you can hear us. Oh, yeah, I can see you unmuted.
Yes. No, thank you. Thank you for this session. I really enjoyed it as well. I think it was really helpful, like, to hear from other experiences and connect with other people. I really enjoyed the fireside chat, and also, just to take the time to just like stop into the project implementation and just take a step back and like reflect, do these little exercises. I think it's really helpful, and I'm not sure I would do it on my own. So like being in a group, like doing it all together, it's really helpful.
Thank you, Aline. And yes, also just to say, Apichaya and Aline, thank you also for your contributions, sharing your experience and your questions. Robert, thank you for your message on the chat. Yes, it is definitely for everyone difficult to make a transformative systems change happen. And I think that is what brings us together in the small wins and in the sorrows of the work that we do. So thank you. Mbadian, are you there? Not sure.
Yeah, from my side, I really enjoy this meeting and this discussion because I can meet with all the new friends from another country, and then I really enjoy with how we simulate to think about how to implement that and how to make sure that we really understand every step about this approach, and really love to participate more on the next session because it's really help us to implement this program or this initiative or this approach in the field. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dian. And Uchi, are you still there? Anything that you would like to share to close our group, basically?
Yes, I really love the cause of this particular time, because it's the time the world needs it. The farmers, the stakeholders, the end users, the NGOs, they need it for food transformation, especially collaboration with the stakeholders in order to bring out the ways in which we tackle hunger, climate change, create value chain within our communities. And that is what we need the most. It's been very important. Thank you. Thank you for my inclusion in the program and the learning project. Thank you.
Thank you so much as well, Uchi, for your very passionate participation, which is always welcome, and your insightful thoughts. So right on time. Thank you very much. We will see you next week. And yeah, looking forward to it. A good kickstart of this group session. So thank you. See you. Take care.